happy couple moving in together. A secret life of infidelity and drugs.
When I told her to get out of my house, I don't know where she went and stayed that night.
A joint bank account missing $100,000. A gun that's missing one bullet.
There was multiple firearms there, from handguns to rifles to shotguns.
Police don't know whether they're dealing with a desperate woman on the run.
And being a private investigator, people thought maybe she'd be able to disappear.
Or a very clever murder.
She pretty much vanished, just out of thin air.
The northwestern part of Florida, also known as the Florida Panhandle, is sometimes referred to as Florida's Emerald Coast because of the beautiful, clear green water. Its westernmost city, Pensacola, has a population of just over 50,000 people.
Pensacola is a vibrant city, home of the world-famous Blue Angels, world's widest beaches, downtown's picking up. It's real vibrant on the weekends. This is a great place to be.
Pensacola's a small, big town. The population's growing, we're growing up. You know, we have a minor league baseball team, a minor league hockey team. College now has a football team that's won back-to-back college championships for their division. Yet, Pensacola is still that town where people open the door for you. And, you know, you're 7 people away from knowing everybody in the town.
On September 14th, 2017, Cassandra Waller contacts the Pensacola Police Department and files a missing persons report on her girlfriend, Taylor Wright.
Cassandra called the police department. Hey, I haven't heard from Taylor in a long time. It's kind of weird.
So Cassandra Waller was Taylor Wright's girlfriend at the time.
They recently moved in together. They kind of took that next step, that next evolution that couples do in moving in together. So everything was moving forward. There were no issues at all. So for her to kind of up and vanish one day was weird.
Investigators try to learn everything they can about Taylor Wright.
We want to know the person that's missing. We want to know their background, any issues, their traits, because it might help us find them.
33-year-old Taylor Wright is a recently divorced mother.
Taylor was a private investigator at the time of her disappearance. She was currently going through the hiring process to be a police officer here at the Pensacola Police Department. And she had been a sworn law enforcement officer up in Jacksonville, North Carolina. From what we could gather, talking to friends and family, Taylor's son was the center of her life. She was a loving mother, a great friend, loved to be in the outdoors, just all around good person.
So Taylor, she was small, but she was mighty. When I spoke with her she said she had a zest for life, she was a force to be reckoned with, and someone who was very energetic and just happy to be around people. She would make friends with just about anyone she met.
Taylor is last seen wearing black sunglasses and a necklace with a bullet as a pendant.
The initial detective just started kind of working the case, but he always had this inclination something wasn't right. She pretty much vanished, just out of thin air.
Investigators bring Cassandra in for further questioning.
She may be the reporting person on a missing person case, but learning that they were involved in it, a relationship, they were moving in together. We need to get an interview of her where we're in control, like we are here at the police department, not at her house. So she voluntarily came to the police department and provided us with this interview. She was nervous. At one point, she began to cry during the interview, but appeared that she wanted us to find Taylor and make sure that she wasn't harmed.
The story of Taylor and Cassandra's relationship is slowly revealed. Cassandra meets Taylor through an online dating app in April of 2017.
It was a little bit of a rocky relationship. They had been dating for quite a few months. While that was happening, she did find out that there was some alleged drug use as well as another relationship continuing on, some infidelity still happening. with, I believe it was a woman in Mississippi.
Whenever I found out about Taylor, like, kind of having this relationship that she didn't end with this other girl, and I told Taylor to get out of my life and everything, and she kept begging to text me, please, just, like, hear me out.
Taylor did have an affair with another female, and that was a concern to us, right? That would potentially give Cassandra a motive.
Taylor asks Cassandra to meet her at the home of her friends Ashley and Zach. Like Taylor, Zach is a former police officer who now works as a private investigator. Cassandra goes to Zach and Ashley's house to meet Taylor.
So I was like, so Taylor, what about the cocaine? And Taylor said, she paused, and she was like, yeah, I've done it 3 times though, that's it. She goes, I swear you can test me whenever you want. It's not an addiction. She goes, I was going through a lot and I was fighting depression and I needed to just be up. She goes, I swear to God, like any day you want. She goes, I'll buy the drug test, you can test me. Prior to like that honesty night, I like how you call it that, there was a couple times when she wouldn't go to sleep. She'd like stay up all night. And the first time we were in New Orleans, she had nosebleeds that night. But like after honesty night, she was sleeping through the night, she was consistent, she was organized, she was focused, and that's why I decided to let her move into my house.
Taylor starts to move into Cassandra's house the weekend before she goes missing. On the morning of Friday, September 8th, 2017, Cassandra and Taylor are both preparing to leave the house.
She made me breakfast. She made me like eggs and bacon and stuff, and she was in no hurry for anything. You know, just like a normal morning. She made me coffee.
Cassandra's off work until Tuesday, so she and Taylor are looking forward to spending some quality time together over the next 4 days. But Cassandra gets a text and agrees to go help with something for a couple of hours, which works out well because Taylor also has a morning plan.
On the morning of the 8th, her and Ashley were going to be going to a bank here in Pensacola to try to get some money that Taylor asked Ashley to hold on to.
It was a cashier's check in a safety deposit box.
Taylor and I, we were literally walking out to my car. Ashley pulled up, and I was like, hey, Ash. And she goes, hey, Cass. And I was like, oh, have a good one. Like, see you later. And she goes, all right. Literally got my car and I left. So I left the house before they did.
Prior to about 11:30, 12 o'clock-ish, Taylor would respond to Cassandra's text messages. Then they kind of stopped. Cassandra was trying to get a hold of Taylor via text message and asking her, you know, hey, where you at? What's going on? So Cassandra then began texting Ashley, trying to obtain, you know, what's going on? Is everything okay?
She was like, you know, Taylor's broke down and cried twice today. I'm like, what is going on? She won't reply back to me. That's not like Taylor.
So Ashley said that she picked Taylor up that morning. They drove around, they did some errands. Taylor seemed a little bit upset, so they went to a family farm up in Milton, Florida. Let Taylor ride the horses, just kind of, you know, relax, decompress.
She was like, she's out riding the horse right now. We'll be home in a little bit. So that was about, I think about like 3:30 or so.
Around 7 p.m., Cassandra texts Ashley again.
And Ashley was like, Cash, she left my house like around 5:15-ish. She said that she was going to take an Uber, go get a drink. She needed to think about things. A little bit after that, like 7:58, Taylor sent me that text. And I'm mad at you. I should have called. I just need some time to think. I'm trying to get my life organized and back on track.
Cassandra sends a series of angry texts to Taylor, but gets no reply.
She was very emotional, very upset. She was very confused about the last text she had received, and then the radio silence she got from Taylor.
At like 11:54, 11:55, Ash texts me a screenshot of what Taylor just sent her. She's okay, I'm not doing anything bad. I'm just stressed out with the move in court, and I need a few days to myself.
She said it was just weird, but she respected her privacy, gave it a couple days, and when she hadn't heard anything and found out that Taylor hadn't contacted her son, that's where she got concerned, and that's where law enforcement came in.
As an ex-cop and a private investigator, Taylor has some skills that could help her if she wants to vanish. But why would she do that?
It's hard for someone to vanish. She had money in her bank account. When we went to Cassandra and Taylor's house and we looked through their bedroom, we found a check for thousands of dollars made out to Taylor's name. If I'm gonna vanish, I'm gonna take as much cash as I can. Why would I leave that? All of her personal hygiene items were there. Everything was there showing that she was gonna come back to that house, not just vanish like she did.
Investigators find several things that raise questions, including Taylor's passport and a gun.
The firearm that I located was in a entertainment stand in Cassandra Waller's bedroom. The firearm was a 6-shot revolver, and when we opened up the cylinder, it only had 5 bullets in it.
What happened to the other bullet? Tourists flock to Pensacola, Florida, to enjoy white sand beaches that are ranked among the very best in the country. It hardly seems like the kind of place where a person could disappear. But on September 8th, 2017, Taylor Wright waves goodbye to her girlfriend, Cassandra Waller, and is never seen again. Police find a gun missing 1 bullet in Cassandra Waller's bedroom. But Cassandra has an explanation.
She had recently got the firearm because Ashley had told her that Taylor was going to be upset that she had gotten the police involved in her missing person case.
She let me borrow a revolver. Well, because I was afraid at first.
What revolver did she let you borrow?
It was a long one. It looked like a really old one. It was like in a thick leather thing, but it said something on it. Like if I saw it again, I could tell you what it was. But she let me borrow that until I got my own gun.
Cassandra becomes emotional when detectives ask her some difficult questions.
Do you know who harmed Taylor?
No.
If you knew who harmed her, would you tell us?
Absolutely.
If she was dead right now and you knew, would you tell us?
I don't know. She was.
Did you harm her?
I don't know.
After hours of interrogation, her story remains the same, and investigators send her home.
After talking to Cassandra, the next person we went and talked to was Ashley. She was the last person that Cassandra said was with Taylor. So of course, we want to know what Ashley's interaction with Taylor was, being that last person. And did Taylor say something? Was she upset? Something along that line.
We went over to Ashley MacArthur's residence and basically interviewed her at her residence for a while. And Ashley allowed us to search her residence. The only thing we found there was a bunch of firearms. With her being in prior law enforcement, her husband being in prior law enforcement, being a private investigator, they're both avid hunters. There was multiple firearms there, from handguns to rifles to shotguns.
Ashley and her husband, Zach, tell investigators that Taylor is a heavy drug user and a liar.
We became friends because of me. We were both private investigators, and I just figured, from being a cop for so long, I knew something was up with her. She just seems like a bad manipulator, and she bothers me. I think she's a dangerous person.
Ashley confirms Cassandra's version of events on Friday, September 8th. She picks up Taylor just before 10 a.m., and they spend the day together. The last time Ashley sees her is around 5:15 p.m., when Taylor leaves to get an Uber and go somewhere for a drink.
I think she's probably just off acting like a nut. I mean, at first I was really worried about her, and I got really mad at her about it, but I think she's probably just playing people, because that's like, after hearing all this, all of this is a game to her.
Did she seem like she was acting any different than normal?
Not really. She was upset about this court case that she had going on and really thought that her ex-husband was going to try to put her back in jail. He thought he was trying to ruin her career, put her back in jail, because she blames him for her not being a cop anymore.
Taylor and her ex-husband, Jeff Wright, have a history of trouble.
There was one incident where Taylor was over at Jeff's house, and this was in the midst of their very contentious divorce battle.
Taylor's ex-husband was telling Cass to immediately change her locks, to put bells or something on her windows, because I think he and Taylor had had physical altercations.
Aside from the divorce and child custody battle, investigators learned that Taylor and her ex-husband have another reason to be at odds.
Taylor Wright had managed to take $100,000 out of a shared account despite a judge putting a freeze so that neither the ex-husband nor Taylor Wright could access it. However, Taylor found a way, accessed that money, took it from that joint account, and then hid it from him.
Taylor asks Ashley to keep some of it in her safety deposit box and then picks it up on the day she goes missing. Investigators wonder if Taylor's gone into hiding to avoid Jeff, or if he could be responsible for her disappearance.
The motive for Jeff obviously would be there. There's $100,000 missing. There's an ongoing court case concerning that money that's missing. They've got this child they have joint custody of.
Investigators dig deeper into Jeffrey Wright and his relationship with Taylor. Taylor and Jeffrey Wright meet in 2003 while she's pursuing a degree in criminal justice. Jeffrey works for the Department of Defense. They get married and move to Jacksonville, North Carolina, where Taylor enters the police academy and is sworn in as an officer in 2008. They remain married for about 10 years and have one child together, but end up getting divorced in 2016. Following up on Ashley's statement, investigators ask Jeff Wright if Taylor is an addict.
In 2012, she was fired from a pain clinic, not working there, but as a patient, for irregularities pertaining to Percocet and stuff like that.
Jeff also says that Taylor has a lot of guns.
She was part of the I'm a big badass because I've got a 45 crowd. We talked her out of that eventually, and she started carrying .380.
He claims that Taylor is very concerned about money.
So we had a combined investment account that during the course of the marriage went from 300 down to 100. So when she sees that she's in danger of losing all this, on February 22nd of this year, she withdrew $100,000, put it in her own account.
So the judge had ordered her not to take that money out, and she was basically in trouble for doing so.
Taylor was getting all these court summons saying that she had to return this money to the courts so they could determine what percentage would be divided up amongst Jeff and Taylor.
Because of her failure to comply with the court order, Taylor is scheduled to appear at a contempt of court hearing on September 22nd. Taylor begs Jeff to call it off and let her keep the money. He refuses.
Taylor had been stressing out over the last several days because she had this upcoming court date where she had to present this money that was taken from her and Jeff Wright's account to the judge on that day, or there'd be some kind of consequences.
Jeff is cleared of any suspicions when it's confirmed he is on a military base out of town at the time Taylor goes missing.
Some people thought because of what she was going through with her ex-husband, the custody battle, the money trouble, that maybe she had just gotten up, left, taken that money to start anew. And being a private investigator, people thought maybe she'd be able to disappear.
And her ex is convinced that the most likely person to help Taylor is also the last one to have seen her, Ashley MacArthur. On September 8th, 2017, Taylor Wright disappears without a trace. Taylor is facing contempt of court charges and has been ordered to return some money that she has taken from her ex-husband. money she asked her friend Ashley MacArthur to hide. Ashley is an ex-CSI and runs her family's business, Pensacola Automatic Amusement, which supplies pool tables and pinball machines to bars and businesses. She is the last person known to have seen Taylor before she vanished. Investigators bring Ashley into the station to get a more detailed account of their final day together.
Ashley MacArthur said that she picked Taylor Wright up and they were going to run an errand. From there, she said that they were going to go to her family's farm in Milton and ride some horses because Taylor had had a rough day and she wanted some time to think and be alone and be with the animals. She wanted some time of peace. So that's what she told police, that she and Taylor went to her farm in Milton.
Y'all were out there for how long?
Probably maybe an hour.
Maybe an hour?
Yeah.
And then from there you went?
Back to my house.
Back to your place.
From there, she told them that Taylor wanted to go to a bar and have a drink and go out and just clear her mind. Now, Ashley said she would drive Taylor to the bar or downtown, wherever she wanted to go, but she says that Taylor insisted on getting an Uber. And that's the last time she says she saw her, is when she walked out to get that Uber.
So we contacted the various rideshare companies here, and none of them had any kind of information that they picked up from Ashley MacArthur's address or Taylor or anybody in the neighborhood. We also reached out to the various cab companies here in Pensacola, and we couldn't find anything to support that they had picked up from Ashley's residence or a Taylor Wright as well.
Investigators subpoena cell phone companies to get the records and track the movements of both Taylor and Ashley's cell phones. They determined that Ashley does not go to Milton, as she claims on September 8th. She goes to Cantonment, which is 35 miles to the west.
Once we started getting all the data in that we subpoenaed, we began to track Ashley's movements with the cell tower pings that were provided from her cell company. And we determined that Ashley was not 100% honest with us on her whereabouts on the 8th.
Taylor's cell phone is with Ashley in Cantonment, then later back at Ashley's house. Stranger than that, both phones ping in Robertsdale, Alabama on the evening of September 9th, a full day after Taylor's disappearance.
What we discovered was Ashley was attending a wedding out in Robertsdale for some of her friends who were deputies here in Escambia County. And Ashley and her husband are seen at the wedding, but no one actually recalls seeing Taylor at this wedding.
Ashley's phone also pings in the Cantonment area again on Saturday.
We need to figure out what she's doing up here and why she's spending all these hours up here that she never told us about. And we didn't want to call her at that time to alert her that, hey, there's an issue in your statement. So one of the other detectives said, why don't we try the property appraiser website? Okay, let's try that. So we had several different last names that Ashley had used, whether it be Ashley MacArthur, Ashley Britt. The first name we put into the property appraiser website was the last name Britt. And that search revealed that property on Britt Road. We put a pin drop on a map and then started inputting the data from the cell tower hits. And what we discovered was that property on Britt Road would have been encompassed in all the cell tower hit data that we had. So we thought we were definitely on the right track at this point.
On the day she disappears, Taylor tells Cassandra that she's on her way to Ashley's bank to get a $34,000 cashier's check out of her safety deposit box. Investigators contact the bank and find out that Ashley has no box there. They subpoena Ashley's bank records.
I could see on a day previous to Taylor's disappearance that a check for $34,000 had been deposited into one of Ashley's accounts. And then the following day, that money was dispersed amongst multiple accounts within the bank. She had a line of credit, a credit card, a personal bank account. We knew that close to the day that Taylor disappeared, that money was due. We learned that from Cassandra, and then eventually when we got the cell phone records back where she was talking to Ashley and asking for this money. And we could see communication going back and forth where Ashley was just basically saying, hey, I'm busy, I'm sorry, I'm stuck, I'll get with you tomorrow. Seeing those communications, plus knowing that the court was saying that this money was due, how important this money was to Taylor, and that Ashley no longer had that money, really concerned us at that point. That's when the investigation completely shifted from a missing person to a homicide investigation. We felt at that point that we were investigating a homicide.
It becomes clear that Ashley MacArthur is lying to investigators when they subpoena cell phone records showing Ashley and Taylor's phones are not at a farm in Milton on September 8th, but rather a farm in Cantonment, owned by Ashley's cousin, Kyle Britt. It's also clear from bank records that Ashley deposits Taylor's money into her own accounts. Upon examining the facts of the case, a judge grants search warrants for Ashley's residence, her business, and the farm up on Britt Road. But before they do anything, police must make sure to get Ashley and Zach out of their house.
The main reason we wanted to get them out of their residence was all the firearms they had. We did not want an armed confrontation when we go to execute the search warrant at their house. With the limited training she had as a crime scene tech, and with Zach being an ex-law enforcement officer, we just did not want any kind of confrontation where Ashley or Zach get hurt, one of us get hurt, or even an innocent bystander in the neighborhood get hurt. Detective Gigliotti and I reached out to Ashley and explained to her, hey, Ashley, we're done with your phone. Can you meet us here at the Pensacola Police Department tomorrow morning? And once we got her here at the police department and got her situated in one of the interview rooms, we let everybody know, hey, good to go, execute the search warrants.
While the search warrants are being executed, Ashley is interrogated.
Ashley's demeanor changed a lot from the first interview into this interview. She appeared to be not as confident in her answers when we are confronting her with, I guess, what we would consider the hard facts. She would answer softly.
What were y'all doing out there at this farm? You know y'all were there.
We picked up some stuff that Taylor had there that
What was
that
that?
she had stored. Some kind of lockbox that she had.
Why would you not tell us that originally?
Because she asked me not to tell anyone ever.
You could see where she was trying to think about her answer, and knowing that we were probably going to counter her with what she's saying, another answer she was going to try to come up with after that answer.
Do you go back out to this farm after y'all leave?
To put her box up?
I'm asking you, do you go back out to the farm after y'all leave?
I don't think so.
She just appeared to be, again, a lot more nervous, not as confident in her answers, slow to answer the questions. In my opinion, tall tale signs of, I got to come up with another lie to cover a lie.
Ask this. Why did you go back out to that farm on Brent Road the next morning?
Maybe to feed horses? I don't know.
During the interview, we were able to get her to confirm, yes, she was out at that farm on Brent Road with Taylor on the day of her disappearance, which was huge because she was able to place her and Taylor at the scene of the crime during the time frame that we have her out there via her cell phone pings.
Meanwhile, the search teams are still looking for any evidence of what happened to Taylor.
Detective Jeff Brown was the lead investigator out there at the scene of the Brent Road search warrant.
So looking at the farmhouse, if you were standing in front of it, you would see a small house that was on the property. Then they had a large horse barn area. There was a lake on this property, and the property stretched for a considerable amount of acres. kind of on the perimeter of both sides of the property was a thick wooded line that was used for like power poles and power companies. So, and it was in the middle of nowhere. There were, not a lot of houses around it, and it was far enough back that if you wanted to do something, no one would probably pay attention in that area. So prior to doing the search warrant, because of the size of the property, I knew I would need multiple investigators, multiple people to help search. I had also contacted Search and Rescue to get as many of their canines out as we could. So we had about 10 to 15 search and rescue canines and their handlers out there. I got officers from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission to help, the Escambia County Sheriff's Department, of course, our agency. We had an ATV out there to kind of get around on the property. Because of the lake, I was concerned about that, so we actually had the Florida Fish and Wildlife bring a small boat that we could put out on the lake in case she was submerged. So it was a very large-scale search warrant. It was the largest one that I've ever done with multiple moving parts.
They located Kyle Britt inside the residence. They interviewed Kyle Britt, and then everybody began searching the property.
Again, our ultimate plan was hopefully we find Taylor somewhere on this property while Ashley's at the police department so they could arrest her there.
So you're the only one that was with her on this day at this farm that you did not disclose to us?
I didn't do anything.
You say if she's at that farm, we're gonna find her because we're executing a search warrant out there right now.
That's fine, but she's not gonna be there.
Then where's she at?
That's what she told police. She said, you're not gonna find her out there.
So I would be texting the detectives that were interviewing Ashley, hey, we haven't found anything yet. They would be, have any updates, and kind of the same. Has she confessed? Has she talked about where Taylor is? To kind of help us out, because again, it was a large parcel of land. And eventually they texted and said, she's decided to leave, she's gone.
When being pressed, Ashley ultimately ends the interview by requesting an attorney.
I think at this point I need an attorney because it seems to be that y'all think that I did something to her.
It seems like only seconds after Ashley leaves the police station that Sergeant Brown gets a call from some officers searching a wooded area near the horse barn.
They noticed what they thought was a human skull in a shallow grave.
A judge grants search warrants for Ashley MacArthur's residence, her business, and her cousin's farm on Britt Road. At the same time, they bring her in for questioning under the guise of returning her cell phone. She admits to being at the Britt Road farm with Taylor on the day she disappears. But when Ashley clams up and requests a lawyer, investigators have to let her go. Moments later, the search team on Britt Road make a shocking discovery: a human skull in a shallow grave.
I kind of moved some more of the brush aside, and I could clearly see, just from training experience and working multiple homicides and deaths, that it was a human skull. I called Detective Wilhite on the radio and just said, you gotta call me. And he never answered. So I picked up my cell phone and I texted him, call me right now, ASAP. And within seconds, he called me back and it was, hey, I'm pretty sure we got her. At that point, we called out the medical examiner. So they came out and it was a slow process where they broke apart the concrete and the potting soil. It didn't cure correctly, so it wasn't as hard to get apart. They were able to break that apart. We did notice on the human skull and the back of the skull that there was a bullet hole. And then we also found a necklace that we knew Taylor had worn. It was a bullet necklace, so that's how we were able to positively confirm that that was Taylor. From looking at everything and how that was the only sign of trauma that we could see, what we believed was Taylor was walking in front, Ashley walked behind her and shot her in the back of the head.
After speaking with the state attorney's office, we went ahead and took Ashley into custody for the murder of Taylor Wright.
On February 2nd, 2018, a judge grants a motion for pretrial release, and Ashley is released on a $400,000 bond.
That's like watching a killer just walk out
Investigators dig deeper and discover that Ashley's business is under investigation for fraud, racketeering, and arson.
Her company supplied video games, dartboards, games like that to, either bars or restaurants kind of in town that you can play. And there was some allegations of fraud that she was not paying those businesses the percentage that they were due for having those equipment in their establishment.
At some point, the building caught on fire, and that was police's thought that maybe she was trying to hide the evidence and get rid of any records.
I know from looking at the bank records that her business was not doing as good as she kind of portrayed it to be. A lot of times there were negative balances in the accounts that I could see from previous months. Power bills, things like that were past due. Again, once that $34,000 was deposited, a lot of those negative balances were turned positive.
Ashley MacArthur was charged with fraud, racketeering, and arson.
She was taken into custody at that time, and her bond for the homicide charge was revoked at that time as well.
She went to trial and was found guilty of the fraud and racketeering, but was not found guilty of the arson, but it did keep her in jail.
Aside from balancing her company's books with Taylor's $34,000, investigators notice Ashley using some of it to pay her husband's bills and the bills of another man.
She had a boyfriend named Beaudry. She was paying some of his business bills.
I own a bar, and she comes in there and like she's friends with the bartenders and people that come in there, we're all friends.
It was also learned that she had purchased him a boat and a motorcycle with some of the money that Taylor had asked her to hold on to.
The girl spends money on everybody around me.
Yeah.
Everybody. It's not uncommon for her to spend money on everybody.
We learned during that conversation she had bought or given him multiple guns.
While interviewing people at the bar that Brandon Beatty owns, investigators find a couple of employees who remember Ashley being there and asking some pretty strange questions.
She was talking about somebody she knew and how she was a bad person and things would just be better if she wasn't around. And I kind of was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh, you don't know her. Her name's Taylor. She said, well, how much coke do you think it would take for somebody to overdose? And I was joking around. I said, probably an 8-ball. I don't know. It was the day before she disappeared.
Okay.
Ashley always had a firearm in the car. And they were talking about how one night Audrey had shot it. And I was like, oh, well, I've never really shot a gun before. So we went outside and I shot whichever, I don't even know what the gun looked like now. I think it was black.
At some point during their evening together, Ashley and Audrey go to another bar where Ashley purchases an 8-ball of cocaine.
She made the comment that she was going to put it in Taylor's beer.
Investigators find video footage of Ashley buying a single beer on the day she's with Taylor.
We believe that Ashley mixed the cocaine into the beer, but more than likely Taylor didn't like it because it would have tasted sweeter. We believe that that was her first attempt to kill her, was to make it look like an overdose.
On August 26, 2019, the trial of Ashley Britt MacArthur begins.
The murder trial had garnered a lot of attention. I mean, this was a big case just due to the circumstances, the twists and turns, and the fact that we had several former law enforcement officers involved in this case. Ashley MacArthur's defense tried to claim that there wasn't going to be a shred of physical evidence to tie their client to the murder of Taylor Wright. However, the prosecution said, you don't need physical evidence because what we'll do for you is we will connect the dots.
The medical examiner testifies about performing an autopsy on Taylor Wright, and her findings paint a picture of Taylor's final moments. There is a perfectly round entrance wound on the back of Taylor's skull, which means that her assailant is standing or walking behind her when they pull the trigger. The bullet enters Taylor's skull at the back. The bullet doesn't have enough force to exit Taylor's skull, but it tries to stop at the top near the front, where it gets stuck. The bullet is from the .38 caliber class of firearm Ashley MacArthur owns guns of this type, but there are many different makes and models available. Unfortunately, the bullet is too damaged and corroded to narrow down the identification any further. It's impossible to say which specific gun fired it. Taylor's body is found buried under potting soil and concrete. And the prosecution presents video surveillance footage of Ashley buying potting soil and concrete on Saturday, September 9th, the day after Taylor's disappearance.
The prosecutor did a fantastic job of presenting the evidence because it was all circumstantial. There was no DNA evidence placing Ashley out at the farm. Only thing we had placing her at the farm was her statement and the cell phone data. There was no ballistics data that we could show. There was no way to link Ashley to a gun. We had a bunch of circumstantial evidence, and the bank records and the cell phone records, and a little bit of a, I wouldn't even call it confession, and just an acknowledgement that she was out at the farm on the day that we believe the homicide took place.
The evidence may be circumstantial, but it all seems to add up to Ashley standing behind Taylor and pulling the trigger.
I know it's silent in a courtroom most of the time, but this silence, you could feel the tension from her family members, from her loved ones. It was just a very kind of eerie moment as we waited for the verdict to be read.
On August 30th, 2019, after 2 hours of deliberation, the jury finds Ashley Britt MacArthur guilty of first-degree murder. She is sentenced to the mandatory 25 years to life in prison.
I think the family and loved ones were as content as they can be, knowing that Ashley would be held responsible, but that's not going to bring Taylor back.
The final verdict was she was found guilty and she was sentenced to life in prison, which was a great relief off of our chest to get closure to Taylor's family, and we were actually able to return Taylor back to her family. Even though her son is going to live without her mother, there at least is some closure there that we were able to help provide.